that when people have a lot of water, there is the danger that they will be sucked in. It's like there's no barriers with water. We are connected. We're open, and so that is a kind of vulnerability. And if we find ourselves being sucked into someone else's depression and misery, that water, it's like seeing someone in the quicksand and climbing in with them, which is not a good idea. So then you do have to back away, and any of the other three elements will get you out of that. You get into fire by just going into action, concentrating on what you want to do and doing something. Get into earth by doing something physical, practical, with tangible results, even if it's nothing but cleaning the house. And you get into air by detaching and understanding it and analyzing it and not getting connected to it, but just observing. So any of those other three elements will get you out of the water if you get too sensitive to someone else's intensities and depths. And you do have enough water, so that could be a problem sometimes, being sucked in to other people's feelings. That's when you get into your air especially and practice detachment or just go off and do something.
That's incredible.
Hello, and thank you for listening.
Well, I am very impressed.
You know, that sounds good. Great.
Sounds about right.
One of my beliefs is that we are born where we fit. I think we come to parents, heredity, environment and horoscope that matches the nature we ourselves have created in past lives. The sky offers us the most complete mirror to this character which we have formed and which continues to evolve and to produce our destiny. But a piece of us is reflected back from father, another piece from mother, and we see part of ourselves in siblings, friends, mates, children, etc. It is often helpful to explore the early experiences with parents as keys to parts of our nature. In the chart of Mr. 1, the Moon-Mars conjunction suggests a mother figure as a primary role model for personal identity, whether she was a positive model, he wanted to be like her, or a negative model, he wanted to be the opposite. We are frequently unconscious of such feelings, and becoming conscious can help us stop blindly imitating or resisting the examples of a parent.
With Moon in double Virgo, sign and house, and Ceres, an asteroid that seems to be another key to Mother, in double Capricorn, Mother is associated with Earth. A horoscope does not show us an objective view of the other person but indicate the subjective experience of the subject of the chart. So we can say only that Mr. 1 experienced his mother, or other person who played the role, as partly Earth, concerned with practical matters, with a strong work ethic, with a tendency to be critical, with a need to cope with the material world, or some combination of such ideas. I also read the 4th and 10th houses as keys to parents but am frequently unsure which represents which parent. In this case, Ceres is in the 10th house, which suggests that the mother may be a power figure. But Uranus rules the 10th house and is placed in the 4th house, so we may have similar parents or one parent playing both roles part of the time. And the theme of Aquarius for parents is very different from the practical Earth. It suggests that there is acceptance rather than criticism, the ability to communicate, an equalitarian feeling, freedom, but perhaps some detachment. However, Uranus is in Leo, the Moon is on Mars, and Saturn, natural and actual ruler of the 10th house, is Scorpio. So at least one of the parents is also fairly intensely emotional and concerned with power. Chiron, another asteroid that seems much like Jupiter but with possible overtones of Uranus, is also in the 10th house, connecting a parent with idealism and/or independence.
In our divorce-prone culture, we might suspect that the parents were enough into the need for independence that they failed to work out the freedom-closeness dilemma, and split. The opposition of Chiron to Uranus would also support that possibility. But Saturn is sextile Ceres, suggesting that the ability of the parents to work out their problems, so we are not at all sure of what happened. It would also be possible for the original parents to separate but for a step-parent to come in and develop a workable relationship. Or one parent might be so busy working that the other was left to carry more of the load. Whatever the details, the father figure, who might be a grandfather with Saturn in the 7th house, is important in the handling of peer relationships. Saturn in a sign and house of mate might mean that Mr. 1 was able to practice learning cooperation or handling power through the relationship with the father. Or he might have learned what to do or what not to do from observation of the father. The combinations of keys to parents mixed with earth and/or water may indicate parents who were much concerned with security, work, possessions, money, or the individual might work with the parents in a family business. We have to talk to the subject to learn the details. From the chart we see the issues. If the 10th house is mother and the 4th house is father, as I suspect, Mr. 1 is leaning about practicality from mother, about power and sharing and love from father, whether the learning is from a positive or a painful observation. The importance of power as an issue in personal relationships is indicated in this chart by the position of the Sun in Libra and by Saturn in Scorpio in the 7th house. Letter 5, Sun, Leo, and the 5th house, symbolizes our ego in the sense of our need to be proud of ourselves, our need to do something more than we have before, and to be recognized for it. Whether we express letter 5 by loving and being loved, by being on stage winning applause, by being the teacher in front of the class, by selling and promoting, or in other ways, we need to pour out emotional energy and to get a positive response back. Putting the Sun in the 7th or 8th house sign or house connects this need to feel power and self-esteem to peer relationships. As with letter 1, we may feel really dependent on the approval of others for our self-esteem. Or we may try to control others to reassure ourselves. Sun in Libra is common in generals and in political leaders. Or we may give up and run from potential rejection. The positive alternatives are also the same as those for letter 1 in the sign and house of other people. We can cooperate, have healthy competition, and help others. It is very hard for letter 5 to lose gracefully because Leo feels born to the throne. The progressed Sun moved into the 7th house when our subject, Mr. 1, was only a few months past his first birthday, further emphasizing the vulnerability of the ego to the responses of others. As this book is being written, we see that progressed Mars will move into the 7th house within a few years, again signaling a need to deal with the issue of self and others. Saturn placed in the 7th house in the 8th sign adds a further complication to the picture. Saturn symbolizes letter 10 in our astrological alphabet, whether in the form of natural law such as gravity and time, cultural regulations such as speed limits, or our own conscience, including guilt when we have transgressed our accepted limits. When a key to executive power, rules, and limits, is placed in a house and sign of equality, we have further emphasized that part of life as a place for learning. Wherever Saturn is placed, including any planets in Capricorn and any in or ruling the 10th house, we are learning to be realistic, learning what we can do, what we can't do, and what we have to do if we are going to live in this world and play by the rules of the game. Among the dangers of Saturn associated with peer relationships is an attraction to power figures to provide for us, or to weak people to whom we will play parent. In either case, we have lost equality. A third danger involves perpetual power struggles in relationships that require teamwork and cooperation. One of the appropriate ways to handle Saturn in letters 7 and 8 is to work with other people. Letter 10 represents our own career in the sense of our role in the society's structure, our handling of power once we have learned the rules of the game. Juno, the marriage asteroid, conjunct Saturn, is a further statement of the lesson involved in peer relationships. Saturn's sign, house, and planetary aspects are all areas for growth in the current life. Since I consider Saturn and the south node of the moon to represent parts of life in which we have something to learn and then something to give to the world, I check their placements in the chart looking for anything they share in common. In this chart, we find Saturn in an air house while the south node is in an air sign. Also, south node is in the house of our own money, possessions, and pleasures, while Saturn is in the sign marking our need to share money, possessions, pleasures, appetites, and so on. The two lunar nodes fall across the Taurus-Scorpio polarity in their house positions, and in the signs of Gemini-Sagittarius. Wherever they fall, we need to integrate the house and sign polarities, to create a partnership with both ends working together, helping each other. All oppositions in astrology represent such natural partnerships. The two ends of the polarity need each other. The nodes in this chart are therefore a repeated emphasis on the self-other issue, the need to be aware of personal rights and power but able to be equally aware of the rights and power of others and to do justice to both, to share for mutual pleasure. In the second house, and Taurus, we learn to provide our own needs, handle our own resources, ensure our own pleasure. In the eighth house, and Scorpio, we learn to share resources and appetites for mutual pleasure. With the South Node in the second house and with Saturn in Scorpio, there are lessons at both ends of the polarity. The Taurus-Scorpio polarity also has an inner form in which we are learning to enjoy the physical world but also to master our appetites. We may be alternating between overeating and dieting, wishing we could cut down on smoking or drinking, fighting dependency on drugs, legal or otherwise, debating sex versus celibacy, torn between spending and saving, or holding on to possessions versus throwing the clutter away. A horoscope does not specify the details of the life. It only points out the issues. It is only when we talk to the person that we know whether he was seeking to integrate on an inner level, appetites versus self-mastery, or on the outer level, personal versus shared resource and pleasures. In the chart of Mr. 1, the Aries Libra and Taurus Scorpio polarities are highlighted, repeating the need to integrate personal confidence and independence with desire for others in the life. Whether the confrontation is experienced more as a freedom-closeness dilemma, so common in our culture, or as dependency versus power, also very common, one of the major goals of this lifetime seems to be to make peace between the personal and the interpersonal parts of the life. Any important issue in the nature is always said repeatedly in the chart, spelled out in a variety of forms with planets, aspects, houses and signs. The close Moon-Mars conjunction with Mars in Libra is still another way we see the message. The mixture is equivalent to a cardinal T-square with Mars as Aries, in its opposite sign, and Moon as Cancer. We want independence, dependence, the baby side of the Moon, and equality altogether, while the sign and house of the Moon bring in the need for a career, almost completing a grand cross but without the power issue found with Capricorn. Virgo represents the details of the job in contrast to Capricorn, which marks our place in the larger structure of the world. The planet sign house combination is simply saying that the person needs all of these parts of the life. But the natural squares which are implicit in combinations of Mars-Moon Libra suggest that attention to the issues is important in order for Mr. 1 to handle the inherent conflicts between the different parts of life. We cannot be independent, dependent and equal to their fullest extent at the same time and place. We have to take turns or stay in the middle in a compromise position with a little of each of them. The solution is easier to say than to do, but awareness of the issue is a good first step toward its resolution. The Taurus-Scorpio polarity also has an inner form in which we are learning to enjoy the physical world but also to master our appetites. We may be alternating between overeating and dieting, wishing we could cut down on smoking or drinking, fighting dependency on drugs, legal or otherwise, debating sex versus celibacy, torn between spending and saving, or holding on to possessions versus throwing the clutter away. A horoscope does not specify the details of the life. It only points out the issues. It is only when we talk to the person that we know whether he was seeking to integrate on an inner level, appetites versus self-mastery, or on the outer level, personal versus shared resource and pleasures. In the chart of Mr. 1, the Aries Libra and Taurus Scorpio polarities are highlighted, repeating the need to integrate personal confidence and independence with desire for others in the life. Whether the confrontation is experienced more as a freedom-closeness dilemma, so common in our culture, or as dependency versus power, also very common, one of the major goals of this lifetime seems to be to make peace between the personal and the interpersonal parts of the life. Any important issue in the nature is always said repeatedly in the chart, spelled out in a variety of forms with planets, aspects, houses and signs. The close Moon-Mars conjunction with Mars in Libra is still another way we see the message. The mixture is equivalent to a cardinal T-square with Mars as Aries, in its opposite sign, and Moon as Cancer. We want independence, dependence, the baby side of the Moon, and equality altogether, while the sign and house of the Moon bring in the need for a career, almost completing a grand cross but without the power issue found with Capricorn. Virgo represents the details of the job in contrast to Capricorn, which marks our place in the larger structure of the world. The planet sign house combination is simply saying that the person needs all of these parts of the life. But the natural squares which are implicit in combinations of Mars-Moon Libra suggest that attention to the issues is important in order for Mr. One to handle the inherent conflicts between the different parts of life. We cannot be independent, dependent and equal to their fullest extent at the same time and place. We have to take turns or stay in the middle in a compromise position with a little of each of them. The solution is easier to say than to do, but awareness of the issue is a good first step toward its resolution. One further complication in the area of close relations needs attention. The search for an ideal love and mate is another extremely common dilemma in our culture. Neptune remains in a single sign for about 15 years, so the approximately 30 years of its passage through Libra and Scorpio added to an earlier 15 years in Cancer and Leo, has highlighted the potential for idealization of the interpersonal area. The earlier generations idealized the home and family while the more recent ones sought, and many still search, for the ideal mate. In the horoscope of Mr. One, we see the theme repeated with Neptune also in the 7th house and also conjunct Venus, the natural ruler of Venus. The message is given again with Jupiter in Leo in the 5th house conjunct Pluto, natural ruler of Scorpio, part of our ability to share the world with others. It is said again by Sagittarius in the 8th house, and by Pallas in the 9th house in Sagittarius. Although Pallas is not as devoted to marriage as Juno, I do take it as one of the keys to Libra, our capacity to maintain peer relationships. Jupiter and its sign and house are different forms of letter 9, while Neptune Pisces and the 12th house represent letter 12. Both letters 9 and 12 symbolize a search for the absolute. 9 is more rational and conscious while 12 is more unconscious, but both are emotional. Fire tends to express the emotion while water tends to hold it in, seeking to absorb and assimilate experience. As is usually the case, a solution to the idealization of relationships is easier to verbalize than to manifest. We may have been looking for the perfect love and avoiding a commitment, or choosing others who are looking for perfection, so we are rejected. We may think we have found an ideal only to be repeatedly disillusioned. We may attract victims where we play God to them instead of expecting them to give us a perfect life. We may stay in a relationship and stay dissatisfied since it is not ideal. One danger of mixtures of the work letters, 6 and 10, with relationship letters, 4, 5, 7 and 8, is displacement of the critical attitude into the relationship. Air is our people element where peers are involved. With air, we see what is there, both flaws and assets. We understand people and we accept them as they are. They are not our job to try to change them. We solve the search for ideal relationships by accepting the limits of human relationships, being satisfied with shared pleasure without perfection, and keeping a higher power as the focus in our search for the absolute. Since the earth houses in the horoscope have both air and earth in them, Mr. One's own choice of career should involve some kind of teamwork with other people. Air needs to communicate, to have intellectual stimulation. Earth wants tangible results. A career helping other people would be possible, whether in business or as a consultant or counselor. The Sun, just inside the 6th house, and Uranus, ruling the 10th house but placed in Leo, add the need for self-esteem and some kind of power in the work. Mars in the 6th house as well as Uranus ruling the 10th, and Chiron in the 10th, want independence and variety. Vesta wants to do something really well, and its position in double Virgo sextile Saturn trine Ceres in the 10th house connects several keys to work in a harmonious pattern, suggesting the capacity to be successful when practical, expressing the Earth. But the Sun-Mercury conjunction is square Ceres, so the Earth willingness to handle details and make an effort might be in conflict with the Libra desire for ease and comfort and other people doing a good part of the activity. As this book is written, progressed Mars has reached the square to Ceres, bringing the Earth-Air confrontation into high focus, requiring attention to resolve the issue. Or, the Earth versus Libra could represent the conflict between work obligations and the time for relationships. Life is a juggling act, and compromise is the name of the game if we are to be a whole person with room for all 12 parts of life. The nodes in the houses of money and possessions are also part of the picture when we discuss the handling of the material world. Placement of the nodes in Gemini Sagittarius indicates a perpetual student, natural teacher, writer or traveler, someone who is always learning and usually enjoys sharing knowledge with others. The very close conjunction of Mercury with the Sun connects the conscious mind to the ego. Mental activity is important for self-esteem. Jupiter, another key to the mind but representing our search for higher truth, for a sense of values so we can make choices, set goals, have clear priorities, is in double Leo, again linking mind and self-esteem and creativity. With letter 5, we want to do more than we have done before. The fire emphasis in the chart is very strong, and added to the air, suggests a restless versatile nature likely to try many jobs and to have many homes. The struggle between the earth-water desire for rootedness, permanence, security, and the fire-air desire for change, risk, excitement, is a clear issue in the chart calling for compromise and integration. Fortunately, Mr. 1 is likely to have the intelligence to understand the issues and to resolve them. But growth is a long journey. We hope he has been able to resolve the need for a companion for the trip.
I thank you.
I thank you deeply.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure indeed.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you for your effort.
Thanks.